Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really my honor to be here. I'm very happy to be invited by the meeting organizer to give some perspective on the sustainable forest management and wood culture from environmental non-government organizations' perspective. So actually, I would say for myself, I also very appreciated the comprehensive definition of the wood culture. And I thought that actually this topic is also the challengeable topic for myself. Even I worked for the Nature Conservancy China program on the green wood procurement and sustainable forest development project. But I still would say that this topic is a really new field, and today actually I'm here trying to roughly give some my understanding of the relationship between the sustainable forest management and wood culture, and also would like to welcome the comments and suggestions from the real expertise from audience actually. Actually, I think that 35 minutes is too long for me. Hopefully I can fully use it, but actually my presentation including 3 parts, because I thought that maybe the Nature Conservancy is a kind of the new organization for the participants here. So I would like to use a few minutes to brief you what is TNC and what is TNC's work in China and what's its work on the forestry issue. After that, I would like to mention the understanding of the sustainable forest management. Even I'm sure many expertise here have already fully aware of that, but I would like to give more my perspective on that. And the third part, I would like to focus on the relationship between the forest management and wood culture. I would like to explain that how we can best use traditional wood culture's idea on the sustainable use of wood resources. And also, I would like to emphasize that wood is not only the economic best used materials, it also has ecological functions. So for the modern wood culture, we should also combine the ecological biodiversity ideas into that. So basically, I would like to mention the above 3 aspects. First of all, I would like to briefly introduce what is Nature Conservancy and what is Nature Conservancy work in China. Some participants might know that the Nature Conservancy is a kind of non-government organization which focuses on the biodiversity conservation. TNC was founded in 1951. The headquarters of the Nature Conservancy was in the Washington, D.C., U.S. At the beginning, TNC mainly focused on the biodiversity conservation work in the United States. But step by step, the Conservancy realized that the globalization idea also can be adopted by the organization. So, so far, the TNC have already worked in 32 countries and also 50 states in the United States. The Nature Conservancy have very unique conservation methodology in U.S. That is buy the protected area and use science-based technology to protect the protected area and show the donors the achievement of science-based conservation methodology. Of course, in the other countries like China and other developing countries, buy land is not work. So here, in China, we actually also use a science-based conservation methodology, but we also changed the working channels and working formats to meet the specific requirements in China. But totally, for the Nature Conservancy, like I mentioned, it worked in the 32 countries and also have cooperated with partners, protected like 7 million hectares in U.S. And the total assets of the natural conservancy reached $3 billion US so far. Globally, TNC now have 320 staffs and 1 million members in the United States. In terms of the TNC forestry project, we actually focus on the recovery and sustainable managed forest aspects. Especially, we thought that certification is very useful marketized instrument which can be used to promote the sustainable forest management. So globally, we also support the forest certification as a marketized instrument to promote the sustainable forest management. So far, for TNC, we had the Global Forest Partnership, which focus on the promoting responsible forest management and the high-impact conservation forest protection work. For this partnership, we actually had 3 aspects. The first one is kind of the sustainable funding mechanism. Another is a global forest trade issue, and also we include the forest health issue under the Global Forest Partnership. If you take a close look at the specific practice, TNC's work on the forestry issue, you will find globally we promote the sustainable forest management by supporting relevant national certification scheme like in the Bolivia and also here in China. And we also made the effort on combating to illegal logging and trade, like we had some wood tracking system works in Indonesia and also some work in the Papua New Guinea. Especially also in the U.S., we also had various forest relevant works. Those are the things I will not mention too much about that. In terms of the TNC China program, we invited by the Chinese government in 1998, began relevant work in Yunnan province. So far, the headquarters office of TNC China program was located in Kunming, Kunming City, Yunnan province. TNC China program had 5 field offices. Actually, Beijing office is one of it field office. We also had a field office in Shangri-La, Lijiang, Gaoligong Mountain, and Deqing County. If you take a look at the works TNC China program done, it's mainly focused on the biodiversity conservation, like golden monkey protection, and also alternative energy issues in the Yunnan province. For the TNC China program, it set up the Beijing office in 2002. For the TNC Beijing office, it's mainly work on the national level works rather than the provincial level works. So far, the Beijing office has several national level initiatives, including the Green Wood Procurement and Sustainable Forest Management project, which is more related to today's meeting's topic. I think that's why I'm here. So for my project, I would say the major objective of this project is to reduce the suspicious wood imported into China. And also we try to increase the domestic legal and sustainable forest supply. Based on these 2 objectives, we worked with government agencies and the business and the relevant research institutions trying to promote the sustainable forest management in China. I think that's how the basic introduction about the TNC and the TNC China program and my project. The second part here, I would like to mention the understanding of the sustainable forest management and the understanding of the practice of sustainable forest management in China. The first point I would like to mention is, like everybody knew, forest is kind of resources. which had the economic value, but also have very important biodiversity functions. So we have to say that forest is actually combined the economic and the ecological and the social functions. If we take a look at the objectives of sustainable forest management, we found it's actually focused on two aspects. One is kind of the sustainable economic use of the forest resources, like maintain the productivity of the forest land and maintain the ability to provide the forest products to meet the social development and economic development of the society. At the same time, we also notice that the objective of sustainable forest management will also include the maintain the biodiversity features of the forest resources, and also maintain the unique landscape characteristic of the forest resources system itself. So if we think about this definition and the objective of sustainable forest management, we found that the sustainable forest management actually focus on two aspects which related each other, but also have the conflict each other. So how to pursue the balance between these two aspects is very important part of the understanding of sustainable forest management. This is kind of the table introduce the diversified function of forest resources. You will find that forest resources not only supply the goods, the forest products, but also can provide ecological services like protect the watershed and help reduce the carbon sequestration emission, and also can help reduce the soil erosion, and also can maintain the gene pool of the earth. Those are all the ecological service of the forest resources, which is quite different comparing with the specific goods which forest can supply. Besides the two functions of forest resources we mentioned here, we also found that the value of the cultural value and the religion value of the forest resources is also very unique function of the forest resources, as here mentioned as the third category. We found that many religions historically depend on the forest resources and can be, developed by maintain this relation between the religion and the forest resources itself. Those are the functions I would like to mention. The next point I would like to mention is about the questions we need to concern when we implement the sustainable forest management. Actually, even like we mentioned, the forest have multi functions for itself. But if you take a close look at those functions, you will find that some of it are actually conflicted to each other. That means in terms of the sustainable forest management, we need to balance the multi-functions of forest resources. For example, if you're trying to use the plantation to supply the timber products or fibers, after you harvest it, you actually also lose the ecological function of those plantations. So how to coordinate the multi-function of forest resources is deserved our to think twice when we trying to make the sustainable forest management plan and implement those plans. The next one I would like to mention here is even we call forest resources as a regeneration resources, but we also need to fully aware the limitation of this regeneration ability of forest resources itself. That means in some certain circumstances, the forest resources can hardly regenerate itself if it be damaged too much. So fully aware of this limitation of regeneration ability is quite important for us to best use the economic value of forest resources. If you take a close look at the sustainable forest management practice in China, you will find even after the Montreal meeting, China also set up its national sustainable forest management principles and index. But so far, it's regret we still can hardly implement them on the ground level. So that means in terms of the sustainable forest management on the ground level, it's still quite poor. There still have big space to improve the ground level ability to implement this sustainable forest management plan. So in China now, you still can find like the simplify the timber species structure, and you also can find the unreasonable timber age structure, and also the decrease of the decrease of productivity of the forest land. So I would say for sustainable forest management practice so far in China, even we have already had the national guideline and index, but the ground level ability still need to improve very urgently in near future if we try to meet up the objective we set for the sustainable forest management. Those are the things I would like to mention here. The next one I would highlight here is the gaps between the forest product supply and demanded. Why I mentioned this points here, that's because one of our objectives of sustainable forest management is meet the social and economic development demanded on the wood resources. So if there had the big gaps between the demand and wood demanded and supply, that means we need to improve the sustainable wood domestic supply very quickly in near future. And also these gaps also indicated us the sustainable wood trade and the sustainable wood supply is a very important issue we should concern so far. I would say that there are many expertise on the forest issue. So you will find that the following reasons caused very quickly domestic demanded on the timber products. The reasons include very quickly increase on infrastructure investment and very quickly real estate industry development in China. And you also found that a very quick increase of rural areas people's income also driving the demand on the wood products. Plus, civilization process is now going on in China. So that means more and more small and medium cities emerged in China very quickly. During this process, the demand on the wood products also increased very quickly. The final reasons is because some very big economic policy change adopted by central government, like the Great Western Development Policy and other policies. That's also driven the demand of the woods in China. At the same time, we found that the supply of the timber product be limited in recent year. We found very outstanding conflict between the domestic demanded and supply. especially after the logging ban in 1998, the domestic logs and wood supply decreased, and at the same time the timber products importation increased very quickly. So if we in consideration these great gaps into the concern of the sustainable forest management in China, we need to make some efforts to improve the sustainable domestic wood supply in near future. This is why I mentioned this gap here. The above I mentioned is kind of the understanding of sustainable forest management. I'm sure they're not too much new for most of the participants, but I just would like to explain it from a non-government agency point of perspective. The third part I would like to mention here is sustainable forest management and wood culture. Frankly speaking, this is a kind of the, like I mentioned at the beginning, is a challengeable field for myself. I would say here, I would like to highlight the two aspects. The one is we still need to maintain the sustainable wood utilization in the traditional wood culture, but we also need to combine or balance the conflict between the economic use and the biodiversity conservation of the forest resources when we talk about the wood culture in the modern wood culture. So the first aspects under this title, I would like to say that taking sustainable utilization thought in traditional wood culture is very important. Some people might thought that the primary forest exists now in Earth need to be protected very strictly, but for at least for the Conservancy understanding, we thought that even for the primary forest resources, if we had a very reasonable management plan, if we set up very reasonable scientific rotation plan, we can best use the economic outcome of the forest resources. At the same time, maintain the very unique biodiversity system in the primary forest areas. There are some very good experience in Australia, in the in the Tasmania Island. We visited that area last year. The people show us their management plan in the primary forest. The rotation for the primary forest, the longest one, reached 80 years. So we would say that from this point of view, sustainable utilization of forest resources is very important part of the wood culture, especially the traditional wood culture. We need to maintain this in a very reasonable way. Sorry, this PPT is actually all by Chinese, but I can explain it a little bit. Here I try to list the forest management ideas from 5,000 years ago to now. I mean, before the new China be established. If you take a close look at the forest management history in China, you will find a very long historical. You will find a very long history of the forest management. Like in the 2,000 years ago, we had the kind of the plantation technical study on the how to raise the Chinese oil pine or fir in China, and also in the Chunqiu, I'm not quite sure, it's the Chunqiu dynasty or something like that. The Confucian also mentioned when you're trying to use the forest, you also need to consider the protection or sustainable use of the forest. It's like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. This idea have already been mentioned by our ancient Chinese people. In the Tang Dynasty and the Song Dynasty, the wood manufacturing technique be improved a lot at that time. We made even some primary format of the plywood in the Song and Tang Dynasty. After that, in the Ming and the Qing Dynasty, the wood manufacturing technique also be improved a lot. And there are many beautiful gardens be set up in the Suzhou and also in the Beijing and in the other areas in China. And if you visited those gardens, even now, you will find many very beautiful, very nice wood products like furniture or other decoration things in those gardens. It reflected that at that time, I mean, 1,000 years ago, or 80 years ago, the Chinese people have already been good at the wood manufacturing and wood processing technique. So the traditional utilization of wood resources have very long history in China. After the new China be established in 1949, we noticed the change from 1949 to 1922. We divided it into 3 stages. As you know, after the new China be established, we used the planning economy. At that stage, in terms of the forest resources utilization, it dominated by the harvest aspects. So from 1943 to 1981, the dominated forest management idea is focused on the primary forest harvest activities. That caused quickly decrease of primary forest in China. After 1981, China went into the transition stage. It's like the semi planning economy and semi-market economy. This stage from 1982 to the 1991. At this stage, in terms of forest management idea, we changed. We began to notice the afforestation, the regeneration of forest resources. But in terms of the forest resources utilization, we still focus on the economic use of forest resources rather than the protection of the ecological function of forest resources. So at this transition stage, we changed a little bit, but still focus on the economic use of forest resources. After 1992, the China entered into the market-oriented economy stage. After that, we, in terms of the forest management regime, we changed it to kind of the classification management scheme. That means we divided the forest resources into ecological forestry and commercial forestry, and use a different methodology to operate or manage these 2 different types of the forest. Especially after 1998, the 6 ecological forestry programs be adopted in China. We focus more on the environmental protection aspects of the forestry development. So based on those change, I would say for the timber industry is very important part of the economic development. So we need to improve and guarantee the sustainable forest output of the resources in China. And this is a very important base and carrier of Chinese traditional wood culture. This is my understanding. But I would like to also mention that even China so far have the largest plantation areas in the world, but the plantation quality is still relatively poor compared with the wood average level. So that's kind of the maps. China is kind of the biggest plantation areas in the world. That means we actually tried to best use the economic value of the forest resources. We made a lot of the plantations. We trying to maintain the sustainable wood outcome, the products outcome of the forest resources. That's part of the traditional wood culture in China, and we should maintain it in a very reasonable method. However, we have also noticed that if we trying to explain the definition of the modern wood culture, we should not only focus on the economic use of the forest resources, but also need to emphasize on the environmental protection aspects of forest resources. So we need to strengthen the idea of balanced wood protection and utilization in modern wood culture. That means we need to incorporate the economic use and the environmental function maintenance of the forest resources. Here, for this new modern wood culture, I would like to highlight some policy background information for better understanding this modern wood culture concept. Like I mentioned, after we went into the market economy, especially after the 1998, the Chinese central government and the state forest administration paid a lot of attention on the environmental protection aspects. We initiated five ecological forest program plus one plantation programs, which not only aimed to increase our ecological protection ability, but also focus to meet the gaps between the timber demanded and supply. These five ecological forest programs, like the logging ban program, the slopeland protection program, sandstone prevention program, and the protection forestry program, and also wild animal and plantation protection program, and also the fast-growing and high-yield plantation program. You will find those programs officially began from 2000 and will last to the 2010 mainly. For these 10 years, the planned total investment to this sixth one reached to 700 billion renminbi. It almost like let me think about this in US dollar. It's like almost 100 billion US dollar in 10 years on this six. Especially, I would like to mention the plantation program, which aimed to increase our domestic wood supply ability. You will find this plantation program mainly located in eastern areas in the China. After this plantation program began from 2001 and will last to 2015. After it be finished in 2015, hopefully we will have plantation areas reached like 13 million hectares in China. And hopefully after this program be finished, I also would like to mention that if we consider it the ecological conservation aspects of the wood culture, we need to pay attention to following elements. One is high conservation value forest. When you're trying to commercially manage your forest, you need to also pay attention to the special part of your forest resources. That is kind of the high conservation value forest. You need to maintain it. You need to improve it, and also you need to maintain the unique biodiversity landscape. The final point I would like to highlight here is because we need the outside support to feed the very quick domestic woods demanded. So the sustainable wood trade mechanism is also a very important part we need to concern when we try to fully implement the reach the objective of sustainable forest management. And I would say that this quickly increase importation need we pay more attention on that, how to become it more reasonable, how to control the wood resources, and how to support the sustainable and legal domestic wood supply. So all in all, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a new topic for myself. Hopefully, I give the clear description of my idea on this topic, and I really appreciate the time you give, and welcome any kind of the suggestion or comments on this PPT. Thank you very much.